Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah.
And I'm Curtis.
And we are here today with Brian Scheid, a booker in the Kitchener, Waterloo area in Canada.
Yeah.
And hello and welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
For sure. To start things off, can you just give us and our listeners a brief summary of who you are and what you do within the realms of metal?
So before COVID, I was the booker of a venue called Chainsaw for a number of years, probably about 7 or so, in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. That'd be booking a lot of independent bands, a lot of punk and some heavier bands and indie bands and whatnot. I'm also in a number of independent bands and I'll book shows around the area and outside of our region a little bit to promote those bands. Also, for some bigger shows like tour packages, whatever, I can promote those shows in the region as well.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how you got started in the area of booking shows?
I went to school in Peterborough, Ontario, to Trent University, and I really fell in love with the music scene there. And I started working at a bar as a bouncer, and started booking shows just so I could get the bands that I wanted to see. Peterborough, while it was a very vibrant scene, it wasn't a ton of people, but it was just a lot of fun, and it was kind of a good start to it. I guess coming into Waterloo, I kind of just wanted to um, keep on bringing bands that I wanted to see, because Waterloo at that time in like 2010, about 12 years ago when I came back, I didn't have as vibrant as metal scene that I found, or then there was punk scene. There was just stuff that I wanted to see that wasn't coming. So if it wasn't coming, I wanted to bring it.
So when you decide on a new area that you want to like bring shows into, how do you get in touch with a venue that will let you book shows for them?
So because I've worked in the bars in Waterloo for a long time, a lot of the industry people in the bar industry, hospitality industry know each other. So I have a lot of contacts for the venues. Now, when you say a venue, um, after COVID, a lot of the actual live music venues, there was a lot of closures. There was Starlight, the Boathouse, the bar that I worked at, the Chainsaw, Pat and Social, a number of the only places that kept on that were a proper music venue was Maxwell's Music House and Rhythm and Brews here. So yeah, I guess it's just keeping in contact with the venue, with knowing the people from the venues. And right now, I'm able to put on shows at places that aren't a venue, but I just convince them to put on a punk or metal show. Yeah.
Is that like the place that are you referring to the place you were at the other night, Brian?
Dive Bar, yeah, that's one of them. Revive is another one, and Prohibition Warehouse is another one as well. So they're like smaller places without a stage, but um, they they're okay with having shows there. Like you walk into it and you're like, how can there be a show here? But it works.
Yeah, when I walked in that venue the other day, I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah,
Sparks.
it's literally called Dive Bar, but yeah, it's the name is pretty yeah, representative of what the bar is like. Yeah.
So I had a question just to start with a different kind of angle here. So the actual promoting of the show. So Ellie, I hope I'm not going too far ahead for you here. So you book the show. Now, how do you actually promote it? Because like a lot of people just throw up a Facebook page and that's it. I mean, if that's all you do, that's totally cool. But like, what do you do to kind of promote a show? Like you had 100 people, I think, at Dive Bar the other night, didn't you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Facebook's a weird thing. Before you could kind of tell, you could put on a Facebook a page and like if you wanted to be lazy and it'd be pretty accurate, but it's not like for the people saying, "Oh, I'm going" and whatever. But now it's I don't know, it's definitely not accurate. People, I think a lot of the younger demographic, they're not using Facebook. So you gotta, if you're doing social media is incredibly important, but you can't just be using Facebook. You gotta use Instagram and whatever. The one thing that I have good with Facebook is that a number of years ago I created the Tri Cities Metal, Hardcore, and Punk, and doing that. And I've got about 2,000 people, over 2,000 people in that, and
And what is that? Is that a Facebook group?
it's just a Facebook group, and I put it out for Instagram as well. So it's anytime that there's a metal, hardcore, or punk show happening, then it's not just me, anybody's, because I wanted to bring everybody together. And anytime that happens, it gets posted on the group, and because many people are hungry for it, people, it's a good listing for it, and people always come out, and they come out in hordes. So.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised so many people actually showed up the other night, because that was a tiny venue and it was packed to the gills.
Yeah.
Aaliyah sorry.
Oh, Facebook does very well. Yeah.
Cool.
Well.
Aaliyah, did I cut you off?
No. Do you advertise with like any local papers or with the venue itself, or do you use paid social media advertising? What sort of avenues do you go down when it comes to promoting?
Depends. If it's just like, say, for the show that was on Saturday and Sunday that I did, because it was more of a local band show, I just put it up on my personal Facebook and use the Metal Network and whatever, and didn't do too much on it and just let it grow organically. If you're doing for a lot of the any touring package or bigger shows, I'll do paid the paid ads or whatever. Just I do find that they work, but it's pointless to kind of do it for a local show. We don't need to do that. And still, we'll still put posters around town. Use Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, whatever you can.
So you actually do physical flyering still?
Yep, and I like to. I don't do it every time, but if I have a number of shows coming up, just do make the hand flyer. So everybody that's coming into the show that paying in at the door, you're giving them a flyer as well for the next string of shows that are coming up. So yeah, it still works. Not the same as 15 years ago, but yeah, it still works.
So I want to go back to where we started. I'm sorry, Elliot, because I kind of got us off track with the promotion and things. I want to go back to that too. Okay, so let's say with booking a show. So most bands, like when they want to start booking, when they want to start getting added to shows, they have no idea what to do. So can you kind of give them a rundown, like from your viewpoint, how they can, like, what they need to do?
Are you thinking of like a punk and metal band, that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, obviously, yeah, punk or metal.
If they're coming from if they're from the area, it would be okay to just try to contact the venues if they think that they can fill out the place. It's hard to, if they're coming from outside the area, you'd want to get in contact with good promoters or good bands that throw their own shows.
Let's say a band wants to come to Waterloo, and so they find you. What should they do when they're reaching out?
Just message me, and I'm kind of, it's like I can't do every show if a band asks. There's been a number of good bands that want to come in spring that I don't have time to, with because I'm playing a lot of shows with my other bands too, so I have time for that.
Yeah.
So there's only a certain amount of time, so it's if I can't do it, I can send them to another promoter as well. So hopefully Waterloo is kind of difficult for outside bands to get into because of the lack of venues, right? Like it's a bigger city, and it should have more punk and metal shows, but yeah, it just doesn't have the venues to really support it right now.
So let's say a band. So okay, so they get in touch with you. What do they need to give you to make you decide whether you want to book them? Do they need to like give you an EPK? Like how do you kind of like figure it out? Or
Yeah,
you just like,
I'm not the most I'll just search them out on Bandcamp and whatever, and then go from there. Yeah, I know the EPKs are pretty, you know, people like them, but yeah, I won't look at it. I'll just be like, do I like this band? Okay, if they don't have any draw, then I'll just put them with the local band that does, right?
that was what I was gonna. That was the next question. Like, how do you kind of determine their draw?
You just kind of assume that a lot that they won't have much of a draw if they're touring and you haven't heard of them before. Because if I haven't heard of them before, probably the other people in KW haven't heard of them before. And like if they're coming from like Thunder Bay or something, if they're a Toronto or Montreal band, they're probably with press and whatever. That might be a little bit different. But if it's a band coming from Windsor, Thunder Bay, just wanted to do a tour, kind of the local band, but they're good and you want to have them in, that's when you kind of, get those other locals on because they probably won't have that big a draw, but it's going to be a great show, right?
Of course. So what's the difference between like a band like you're talking about and then like someone like First Fragment who are like on a label that you booked? But I mean, obviously they're not that big, but like what's the difference with that?
First Fragment would have a draw.
Okay.
You know that, like I don't know, Old Time Moonshine. They're good. People would come out for Old Time Moonshine. I don't want to say like there's some bands specifically, but I don't want to say
of course
that I have coming up. But I'm just like I like you guys and I want to have you on, right? And I want to help it out. But yeah, it's hard to put it in specifics. But yeah, Old Time Moonshine, like the show on Saturday, Old Time Moonshine. I plugged them in with two local bands, but they probably draw on their own. But together with the locals, they got way more people in. Yeah.
Cool. So, let's go ahead. Sorry.
Let's say, I mean, clearly you've spent a lot of time, years, developing a network around you and developing your relationships with the bar scene and the venues and other bands in your area. Let's say it's a new band. Let's say there's a newer band. They want to start, they just got together and, maybe there are older musicians that haven't played in a while, or there are younger musicians that are just starting their first band and they don't have any connections, but they want to start playing shows. How can they kind of estimate, how can they increase their draw, and how can they estimate how, like, what kind of venue they should be playing? Like they shouldn't, so they don't waste their time like pitching themselves to venues that are way too big.
Yeah.
This is what I want to
know. I guess at that point, it's getting all your friends out, right? And trying to work within the network and just you want to put out your music beforehand and whatever network you're in. Like you want to do the whole friend things, but
so release music first.
You need to release music
first of all,
and get your name out there, and get people listening to you. And because you can have
I have a question then. So like there's a lot of bands, like I know there's bands that you book that don't have music out. How come you're booking them then?
Well, the one I think you're probably thinking of the one on
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah. Okay, Dead Karma. So that one's a friend of mine's band, and they play in our jam hall.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
I would be hearing them from across the hall. Okay. And actually, it's funny because Raider.
Yep.
So I helped them with their first gig, just hearing them from across the hall. I'm like, you guys should go into this battle of the bands. They hadn't played a show yet.
Oh, fair.
And now Raiders going across, doing a tour the East Coast. They're doing some stuff very soon, but that's the same thing. They didn't have anything before, but I was like, oh, this is great. People will like them.
So it's basically a gut feeling if you kind of hear them, or it's like they gotta have music first. Okay, I was just trying to.
Yeah. With that one, it was definitely I just heard them down the hall, and I know they'll bring people. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's say these bands are like booking their own shows, which you do for yourself.
Yep.
What are like the first steps? They have music. So let's say they have their music out and they're promoting it by posting on social media and all of that. but what are some steps they can take to like start connecting with their local scene, like going to shows and things
going
like
to
that?
shows. Going to
Yeah.
shows. The worst thing to do is to be in a band and not be supporting the other musicians. That is the biggest thing. There's some good bands around here that I don't think uh, would definitely get some more shows if they were more connected with the other bands in here. But yeah, it does become a bit of an incestuous scene, but it's a friendly scene, and yeah, it's people. A lot of bands support each other around here, and that's the first step in that. Yeah.
Question on that. That do you think that bands should, I guess, tell me if you think this is accurate, because this is something I've observed. I feel like you can go, even if a show is not really in the same genre as you,
Yeah.
connecting with the local scene still matters because people will support local bands
Yep.
whether they're specifically into that genre or not.
Yep. Especially I don't. This is entirely from my what I've seen, but and maybe from around here. But I'm in a punk band. I'm in a metal band, hardcore band, and a lot of the punks and the hardcore kids will go to a bunch of the other shows. The metalheads seem to kind of stick to the metal shows, but yeah, if you going crossing the genres, it's there's still a lot of networking with that. So say there's a I'm not promoting it, but it's bandmates that are doing a thing on March 11th for the Stay Cold, which is a hardcore festival that's going to be at Bobby O'Brien's, the Hub, in yeah, March 11th at Kitchener. And with that one, it's a multi-genre festival. So it's yeah, I enjoy having the multi-genre stuff and crossing the scenes.
So, okay, so quick question just in regards to the multi-genre thing. So, like, for example, how diverse of a bill is too diverse? Like, could you do something like death metal band with like a hardcore band, you think get a draw, or maybe not hardcore band, like, let's say a symphonic metal band or something does it with a death metal band. Is that going to be worth a draw or what?
Oh, I love that kind of stuff. I know people, and I get into disagreements with that. I used to be in a symphonic metal band, and it's sometimes, and with the bands pairing around the region, it was, yeah, sometimes it was harder to pair because they'd be like, oh, I only want to be a thrash band, only wanted to have all thrash bands on the
Yeah,
bill,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
I love having multi, especially in metal, all over
Mhm.
the place. I'm in a black metal band, and it's the same kind of thing. That sometimes it's hard to pair because those guys only don't care about black metal as much, but I love death metal. I love thrash metal. I love all the kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I also love pairing like hardcore, punk, and metal. There's a multi-venue thing that I'm doing for the May Victoria Day long weekend, where we're trying to get metal bands, punk bands, hardcore bands, kind of bringing out the best and the different genres in the local scene, and each venue will have its own theme, kind of thing. But people,
Nice.
I know people. Some people don't like kind of like they want all death metal or whatever, and have like the same kind of bands on the bill. But I like going beyond that. I think only the one mistake I had was when I did I think it was like a ska band, and then I paired them with like a hardcore band. That didn't work out as well. I thought it'd be funny, but it didn't work out.
I'm sorry, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, I know. I was like, maybe it'll work. That we thought it'd be funny. We liked everybody there, but then
Oh,
it
Jesus.
just didn't work. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a couple questions. Leah, are we done on that section? Because I wanted to ask about, are you willing to talk finances and type stuff? Not your personal, obviously, but money type questions, like general type money questions?
Sure.
Cool. So how do you handle like bands when they're like money wise? So like how much should they be asking for? Like if they're newer, well, maybe not a specific amount, but if you can kind of get the general ideas
Well,
here.
if they're newer, so I pay out um like I don't have guarantees for the bands, but
Okay.
if it's a successful show, then you're going to be giving out a lot of money. I'm kind of different where I put a cap on how much money I'll make. I don't want to do a percentage and keep on going. If it's a really successful band, a show, then the bands will get more money. Like I don't want to get into finances, but that discussion
Obviously.
that we had at the end of January, which was crazy, there was no guarantee on any of those bands, but all those bands were extremely happy with what they walked out with.
Cool.
And that's for kind of newer bands, and it's hard to do that if you don't know the promoter, because there are a lot of shady promoters
Of
as
course.
well. Yeah, but yeah, if you're going out of town, you want to, getting $200 is fine. Want to try to do like $100 minimum, and that's just the minimum stuff. If the show is successful, it should be, continue to go up.
Fair enough.
So you can start asking for guarantees. That's just from like the newer bands.
Cool. Aaliyah, did you have a follow-up on that before I ask my next one? Okay, cool.
Just
So
asking for guarantees is fine. If you have to draw for it.
okay, so let's get into that for just a second. So talk about guarantees then. So so if a band wants a guarantee, like how should they be approaching you? How should they be talking about this? Like, I don't know, I'm not in a band, so you tell me.
You just put it out there. It's more of the tour packages that are coming in. They're the ones that are asking for the guarantees.
Okay.
So
how would you negotiate that?
If it works,
Band wants $500, let's say, for a night.
I guess it would be the guys sending these are pretty open to dialogue. So it's if the venue that you can get is more expensive, they could say, okay, now we can put it up. If if you can get a venue for free, then you kind of go from there, because they'll also be concerned about how high the ticket price would be. So if they're asking for a lot of money, and now it's a lot of money to rent the venue, and you want to have the show, now it's going to be ticket prices, and they may bring the guarantee down. But then there's a lot of other factors too. There was I'm not going to say who it was, but there was a good one that I had in the summer that they actually canceled because the price of gas went up, and it made sense. Yeah, because everything was going insane, and they couldn't. We got them for a good deal, and they just had to cancel the whole tour because they weren't going to be making money. They did it the year before, and then
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving away from the money aspect, the next thing I wanted to ask you. So, how do you kind of figure out which venue to host a show at? Is it kind of like just you kind of guess, or like what's the science?
I like being able to fill up the venue. So I'd rather have a sellout at a place that has, 100 per, like, yeah, I guess it's just how many people you think you can fit, and how many you don't want to have a bigger empty room. I'd rather have a smaller full room. Like, Dago Abortions.
Yeah.
So the last show that they played, they've been around since the 80s and whatever. And so they played at Dive Bar in December, and it was and I was suggesting not to do it. I wanted to go do a bigger venue because they could hold more people, and they're like, it's Sunday night, we just want it packed and go from there. So sometimes the bands will have the say too.
So okay, just one more question, just on the venue part then. So like, let's say that a band wants to book for a Saturday night. The venue you want booked, you can't find something comparable. Do you then go down to like something like, for example, Dive Bar that's tiny, even though you know that they could sell a lot more like Dayglow, or do you just pass, or what do you do?
It could be either. Sometimes you have to pass. Sometimes you can. But that's also where where you saw First Fragment, Short Finger. They're not a venue. They're just a brewery.
That was a weird venue, I gotta say.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was just weird though.
Yeah, it was weird. It wasn't in the mid, but that's one of the places that we went to looking for shows after COVID, because we wanted that. Honestly, we wanted that place at Maxwell's, and then we couldn't book it there. We wanted that show to be at Maxwell's, which would kind of make more sense. We couldn't do it there, so we went to Shortfinger.
How did you?
It's not a venue; it's a brewery. Yeah.
How did you guys just kind of figure out going to some place? Like, I would never have thought of going to something like that.
I kind of there was some so there was 3 promoters that were working on that show, and I was kind of adamant about that one just because of the location. I knew that being in KW, they wanted to kind of go outside Kitchener Waterloo. And I said it will be the most successful in having it in KW, even though this is a venue that nobody's been at. Let's try it out. And it worked. We hit all our marks.
Okay, and then how do you kind of, okay, so like you mentioned earlier, I might have been off the call, so hopefully I'm not bringing anything up that I'm not supposed to. You mentioned that it's sometimes hard to get bands to come through here because of Toronto.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Can you kind of explain, like, let's say you want to have a, like, I don't think you put on a Willem screen, but they did
That was my friend Kyle who did that.
well, they did Cambridge, then they did Toronto, but that's not normal. So can you kind of explain the process on that? Like how that kind of works, like how it would normally be, how you figure it out?
With punk, it's a little bit easier because we'll get these tour packages that will want to go through London and Kitchener, whatever. There is kind of a metal monopoly in Toronto that will a promoter will get a lot of the tour packages because he's great and he's been doing it forever and incredibly successful. So you don't have to blame other bookers or whatever for doing that. It does kind of stuff for Kitchener Waterloo because you don't get the kind of the same amount of stuff coming in, but you know, being beside Toronto, what can you do? Sorry, I forget the rest of the question. I think
well, it was basically like, how do you kind of work it out, like to get the band to come to the smaller area, Kitchener Waterloo versus Toronto, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Or is that like determined by the tour manager?
Yeah,
like who they put it out to?
Definitely the tour manager.
Okay, fair enough.
They're looking to get into the smaller cities. Sometimes there'll be radius clauses and whatnot, but yeah.
It was just kind of funny because like I said, that last concert I went to both and I was like, oh, it seems kind of weird, but
yeah, and because with the Wilhelm Scream, I think they played at a Bovine in Toronto, and that's not a big venue. We need
Velvet. It was Velvet.
Velvet. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's still not the hugest venue, but it's still a couple hundred, and Rhythm Blues was a couple hundred, so it made sense for them, right?
Interesting. Aaliyah, did you want to ask something before I go on?
Well, you can go on. I had a question, but I can wait.
No, go ahead.
Oh gosh, it left me.
Okay, I'll jump in while you're waiting for that one. So, can you tell us a bit about what would you consider to be a successful show versus an unsuccessful show, other than just monetary?
That everybody's happy. Yeah.
Well, you can't gauge happiness though. Like everybody, like there's gonna be one.
You can. How do you gauge happiness? You can.
I was a bartender on Saturday night, so I could. I'm serving all the people and I'm making them happy. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of monetary stuff, but like it's not. Yeah, you can make money if you're bringing people in, and you should make a bit of cash. But yeah, just happiness, I guess. Yeah. And the bands are happy, and the bands are paid, and all the bands are paid.
I was actually going to ask you. I don't think you do this, but if you do, just let me know. What do you think about when venues take a cut of the merch sales? Just out of curiosity.
Oh yeah.
I don't think you do that, do you? Or do you?
Oh, for Dive Bar, no.
Yeah,
I know some places will. I'm actually doing merch for a band on Thursday at the Hub, Bedouin Sound Clash, and I'm having to keep track of stuff because they're taking a portion of the merch sale. Yeah, it's the venues. They're for most of the shows that I throw. We haven't gone on to that, but I have had that happen a couple times, and it was definitely a point of contention.
Fair enough.
I don't. Yeah. Ugh.
Fair enough. I just realized you never answered the rest.
I'm also a band guy too, right? So
yeah.
So as a band guy, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that.
I just realized you never answered the second half of my question. What would you consider to be a bad show other than the financial aspect of things?
Yeah, just basically nobody showing up. That's yeah.
Well, what do you do if that happens? Like, okay, so you throw a show. It's Saturday night. You got like 5 people sitting there. I'm assuming this has happened to you. This has happened to pretty much everybody. So, like, how do you keep motivated on something like that where there's like 5 people sitting there and it's like
kind of see what went wrong with it and kind of go from there. A lot of, if you're doing a show and that's happening, then it was obviously a bad show to begin with, or there's too many shows that are happening that's the same.
I wanted to ask you about that too.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of the promoters in town were all connected and talking about what dates we're doing,
Yeah.
so we don't step on each other's toes and kind of help each other out.
Now that didn't happen on Saturday because there was like 5 shows in Toronto. There was 3 in our area, I think.
That was just for for like Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge.
Well,
Like
Toronto had like 3 or 4 as well, I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so how did that happen if you guys are all connected?
No, I mean, like, we're connected with the guys in KWC.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, not
fair.
the Toronto. The Toronto stuff really doesn't matter if there's a Toronto show, like even with APOC played down there, and like
Yeah.
people having the show on Saturday in Waterloo probably had less people going to Toronto for APOC, that kind of thing. So that was, yeah, yeah.
Fair. So how? Oh, sorry, Leah.
Oh, well, we're running out of time.
Okay.
Go ahead, Curtis, though.
Last just question on that then. So when you're booking a show, do you actually look to see if anything else is booked already and which bands, or does that not even enter into the equation then?
Depending on the show, if it's a smaller show, we will already kind of have the dates all lined up.
Okay.
If it's a bigger show, you're like, hey guys, watch out for this one. You don't want to book something on this date, kind of thing. But yeah, there is a lot of communication with a number, not all the promoters. There's a couple outliers, but with a number of the promoters in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge.
Cool. I think
Just
that's
working
all.
together. It's better to work together.
I agree.
Yep. A rising tide lifts all ships.
Mhm.
All ships. Yes. To wrap things up, is there one tip that you could offer to a local band trying to book their own local show?
Just try as many avenues on social media and physical postering and just getting the work out, the word out. You just got to keep on trying, and then once you get that network, it gets easier. But you still you got to have the passion for it too. Yeah, just be passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah. Really good. Thank you again, Brian, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And we'll link all your bands and everything in the show notes.
Yep.
And everyone listening, until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.